Hi, my name is Rachel Lai.
And I'm Nazira.
And we are Wavemakers. So today we have Stephanie Schwab, the founder of Crackerjack Marketing. And she has 20 years of experience in digital marketing, and she's worked with clients like Skype, Target, Citizen Watch, and so much more. She's also a highly rated university instructor on digital marketing and a professor at an international university called Harbor Space, which is where one of our team members, Rachel Mzangi, met Stephanie. And
Nice.
So very excited. Thank you, Stephanie, for being with us here today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Oh, I'm a big fan of social listening. As you know, I've been working with a bunch of our clients to do this. So I would love to speak to another expert and enthusiast about the topic, just because I feel like a lot of people do not understand the value of social listening. And I think they also don't understand the differences between social listening versus social monitoring. So I would really love to hear what Stephanie has to say about that,
So as you know, today we're going to be talking about social listening, and we have like a handful of questions that we're just, dying to ask you. And I'm going to start off with the first one, basically. We heard that you used to work with this agency called Conversion. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Agency Conversion actually is a New York-based agency, still exists in a slightly different form. But at the time, we developed one of the first social listening platforms. There were a handful of other companies who were doing social listening, and we wanted to create a platform where we could do social listening and then use it to inform strategy and make it part of the agency process. So we were able to, whereas most listening companies were either do-it-yourself software, or they had these like really big complicated packages where you would get the listening but not get a lot of insight, we were able to do both together. And the company still exists and still does a great deal of listening that's powered by artificial intelligence and sentiment recognition. So but I ran the agency as the general manager for 5 years and oversaw the development of software. So that was very exciting.
Oh, wow. So you're actually a part of the tool development itself. How
Yes.
long? And then you sort of moved on right now? You're doing your own thing?
Yeah. So I was there for 5 years, and then I was at another, at a PR agency in New York for a year or two. And then I started my own agency almost 10 years ago. So,
oh, wow. How's that going? 10 years running your own agency?
Yeah, it's great. I love it. The agency is doing well. I have an amazing, amazing team that's across the world. We're all virtual. And most of us have been together for longer than the agency has been around, because I've hired them from companies I'd worked with in the past. And
oh, wow. That's really neat.
Yeah. So it's great. It's great. I love it. I love our clients. We have an amazing roster of clients. And it's like a dream come true.
Do you still practice a lot of social listening in your current agency?
We do every single day. So
nice.
We use it for all of our clients. I use it for my personal brand development. It's something that we hold because 3 of us came out of Conversion. We were all at Conversion together. We all understand it really, really well and love doing it and love proving our capabilities to clients.
Could you then maybe explain to us like how at Conversion, you guys use this thing called machine learning, and how does that help brands analyze essential data?
So machine learning can help to simplify the process of gathering data. It allows the software to become more intelligent as it goes through data. And then
actually, I wanted to ask you about machine learning itself and power of AI. Do you think that the AI intelligence has obviously advanced, but my second question is, has it adapted to different languages around the world? Like, what do you think of that?
To be honest, I don't follow AI as closely now as I did, but I would say that it's adapting quickly, and especially like to different languages. I know that there are many, many companies all over the world who are working on this, in particular, some of the biggest industrialized countries, China, Korea are just really, really getting really good at this stuff. At the same time, I hesitate to think that machines will fully replace humans on this score, because it's very hard to understand the nuance. And 15 or so years ago, social listening was about 60% accurate in terms of sentiment, maybe 55 to 60% accurate. And I think it's gone up since then. I mean, we find it to be maybe 70-75% accurate for most of our clients, but it's not 100% accurate for sentiment.
So would the human element come in for the remaining percentage then?
Exactly. You still have to scrutinize stuff. You still have to have a human involved. Like I would never send a client a report that just came straight from the software without digging into the data, especially if there were anomalies in the data, especially if, oh my goodness, all of a sudden negative sentiment spiked. Why? And, that's really
We've had that experience as well, actually, in our agency for one of the clients that we work with, because linguistically, for example, in Malaysia, where we speak multiple languages, and it's a combination of Malay and English. So I don't think the machine is equipped to pick up dual languages at any given time. So you suddenly get this spike of, like you said, negative sentiments, and you're wondering, hey, why? What happened? And then you realize that the people who were writing about the brand specifically were doing it in multiple languages, or rather a mix of two. And so that really becomes a problem, and still requires humans to really look through that.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, I don't know this for fact, but I doubt that most social listening software is even trying to tackle that particular problem. And that's some social listening software does better than others in detecting like regional nuance, or, in the US, Spanish-speaking people, some software will do better in understanding that conversation than other conversations.
All right, cool. So let's move on to the topic of, content creation, because that's what we really want to know when it comes to social listening. How do you think brands can create content from using a social listening tool?
We use social listening to create content for our clients every single day. It's really, really important to keep a finger on the pulse of what the brand community is talking about and interested in. And so we use it to inform what we are putting out there in the world in terms of blogs, in terms of podcasts, in terms of video, in terms of social messages. A lot of that is informed by social listening. It may be as casual as just making sure that we have searches available through our listening tools for brand names to make sure that we're, for some of our clients, it's that basic, just to make sure that we're picking up all the mentions of the brand name and making sure that, if something goes wrong, if somebody's upset about a product, that we're then answering that question or certainly answering the customer service problem, but also answering the question that's raised by it in some of our content.
Do you think that brands are oftentimes using it to, say, monitor different topics? Like, for example, a lot of them, like you mentioned, they only care about their brand name mentioned, but do they have you come across a brand that actually wants to know, say, like how audiences feel about certain trending topics that are out there and how they can tackle it and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. For most of our clients, we do that regularly as well. I think of listening as there's two sides of listening. I think that there is reporting listening, and then I think that there's like real time in the moment listening. And we use listening for both. So the tracking the brand mentioned to make sure that you can respond, to make sure that you know what's going on, that you can answer customer service questions. That's real-time listening. That's when you're like in the moment and you're really trying to figure out what's going on at this moment in your brand universe. But then reporting listening is when you might listen to a broader conversation. You might listen to other keywords. You could do it in either place, really, to then inform our content strategy, our marketing strategy, our advertising strategy, kind of everything that we're doing.
It almost feels like a psychology game where you just kind of need to bring in that element to understand like how humans behave and almost getting into their emotions.
There is a lot of psychology involved. And, again, coming back to the question of whether or not software can understand the nuance, no, it can't most of the time. So we like to think of social listening in two sort of frames. One is the real-time listening that you would do on the day-to-day to understand what's going on with the brand and be able to respond to customer service inquiries and, maybe lightly inform some of your strategy. And then there's measurement or reporting listening, which is when you take data more holistically in a broader sense. You look over a greater period of time, or you look at a broader set of keywords, and then you use that listening more strategically to inform what you're doing going forward. And while we use both to inform content, the the measurement or reporting is something that we do more of when we're looking to develop strategy and content.
Okay. And like when it comes to, say, the best channels for, let's talk about channels now. Like, what would you say is like the best channels to focus on when it comes to social listening in your experience and through the work that you do, at least?
Yeah, they're all very different. Of course, it depends on where your audience is first and foremost. So it doesn't make any sense to listen to Twitter if your audience isn't on Twitter. So some channels are easier to listen to than others. Facebook is notoriously difficult to get information out of, in part because it's a closed platform where most people are posting privately, not publicly. And so it's much more difficult to get data there. LinkedIn can be similar. It's also somewhat difficult, but more people will post, like companies in particular, post publicly. And, and a lot of people will write articles on LinkedIn, for example, that are public. And so you can get a little bit more data out of LinkedIn, but those two are both closed platforms and make it a little bit more complicated. Instagram and Twitter are open platforms, meaning anybody can follow anyone. You don't have to mutually follow people. And so the data that we receive from those platforms is stronger, as well as stuff that we get from the open web, from blogs, articles, news feeds, whatever. So when you start to look at listening and you're looking particularly at a tool to listen with, you want to make sure that it excels at the platform where your customers are most frequently. So that's the most important.
Do you think that, like, when it comes to, you were just mentioning about how different platforms have better visibility than others, do you think that there are platforms out there that, for example, like Instagram, right? I find that even we've done social listening for them, and what we discover is it's still quite difficult to get all the information without being on the platform itself sometimes, because I don't know, maybe we were not using the right social listening tool, but we've tested a few and we find that with Instagram, they still don't capture the best amount of content. We still feel that sometimes we need to go back to the actual platform to do more social listening. Do you think that's the same?
That's totally true.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would say, so empirically, if we just want to talk about not where your customers are, but which platform's easiest to listen to, Twitter makes the most data available to social listening tools. And so, if you just want to get your finger on the pulse of a conversation and your demographic is not wildly divergent from the Twitter demographic, I would go there and you could do super simple listening without even paying a cent by using Twitter's own search tools. And they have really robust search tools, and you can get a lot of information from Twitter. It is a lot less easy to do it on Instagram, although it's possible to do the same kind of listening on Instagram, especially when you're looking at hashtags, which give you a very good picture of the conversation often for certain areas. But it is really, really hard to do it on Facebook, the search function sucks on Facebook. And most tools won't really dig in. And LinkedIn's also somewhat difficult as well. So, yeah, but the open web provides tons and tons of information. Just a simple Google search or having Google Alerts set up is a great way to do some rudimentary listening. And, of course, all the platforms do that kind of thing really well.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about then the audience sentiment. We spoke a little bit about like how, your audience react to a brand's product or service. And how would you say is the best way to determine what a positive, neutral, or negative sentiment is? And is there a way to evaluate that? Like, do we need the human understanding of that? Or does the tool do that? How do we measure that sentiment?
Yeah. So the reality is that most of the platforms sell themselves as being able to determine sentiment. And so, they're going to sell you this, package, whatever it is, or you're going to do self-service software and they're going to say, and we're going to tell you the sentiment of your conversations. And the reality is that's not very accurate, no matter what they say. So you have to decide as a company or as marketers whether or not you're willing to take a 60% accuracy rating as enough. Is that good enough? Can I report that back to my client as an agency? Can I report what the software says back to my client if it's a 60% accuracy sentiment reading? And our general feeling is no, we can't do that. And so even when we're getting up to 70% or 75% accuracy, which some of the really expensive and sophisticated software purports to be able to do, we still would never, never, never send that data straight to the client, like never in a million years. So
what would you do then? Like, is that something you guys? How does
you
that
have
work?
like a vetting team, I assume.
Yeah. So we have people who are really trained in social listening and are very good at manipulating software and getting the data out, and then double checking things and looking for those sentiment spikes, or to understand what the sentiment, especially if there's been a shift in some direction. And so we'll do that, and then our community managers, or whoever's the brand manager on our agency team, whoever's really, really engaged with the brand, will also look over everything before it goes to the client, because they obviously know the brand best and know whether or not their audience is likely to use some slang word, or something that would maybe set off the change the sentiment meters. So we'll scrutinize it.
Yeah, that makes sense, because on our end, like when, as we mentioned to you, when we were doing social listening for some of our clients, what we realized is if I'm doing the monitoring and I'm vetting through these tweets and articles and all kinds of things that's coming out from the internet, and you literally have to go through thousands of them, and sometimes it's hard if you don't have someone who understands the brand as well. But lucky for us, in our case, like I also manage the brand, so it's easy for me. I'm just like like putting it together really fast, but it's still a lot of work. And the good thing is that, again, like I'm not monitoring a global market. It gets crazier the minute you're going for a bigger market.
Yes.
You can relate to that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have clients who, work in APAC and the States and Europe. And so we get data from everywhere. Our task, we're their U.S. agency. We prepare the reports for the U.S. market and manage the social for the U.S. market, but we have to closely coordinate with the other regions. And, we may get information through our English language monitoring that has impact on them. And you need a lot of communication, especially on the real-time side of things. And many companies, especially really bigger enterprise companies, have set up systems where they have like a really specific way that they're going to send listening data across the organization.
Right. No, that makes sense. Otherwise, it'll get overwhelming, because everyone's listening to so many different things and there's so much information going on. And where do you even begin to make sense of things? Wow.
Exactly.
Okay. So do you have any experience like with the brands that you work with who say had negative sentiments, and how did you manage the situation? What do you guys do as a team?
Sure. I mean, it happens kind of every day for every brand in some way. It's never all perfect. Yeah. And so like we currently have a brand that markets primarily to parents of younger kids. And every now and then we'll share something with a kid in it, and that kid will get trolly, negative, yucky comments. Somebody will say the kid's ugly, the kid's fat, the whatever. And, just because they're being jerks, to be honest, just because they want to troll, because they want to stir up problems. Or for whatever reason, it could be a bot that's doing it. Like it's a little bit hard to tell sometimes. And so in that case, obviously, if we can, we're going to work to take the comments down as quickly as we can find them, or maybe even the whole content down if it really seems to be attracting a lot of negative energy. And so, we try to stay on it in the day-to-day to especially mitigate the negative comments. On the positive side, we also want to make sure that we're communicating with people who love our brands. So, if we do see something positive through listening, or a notification, of course, on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, then we will for sure get back to that as quickly as we can, and get back to that person and, welcome them to the brand family, or, thank them for their comment or their review or whatever it is. So yeah, it's really important to stay on top of that stuff in the day-to-day.
You brought something up really interesting, and it resonates with me because I've come across it doing social listening, the whole bots trolling on a certain brand. I think that's quite frustrating for someone who's doing the monitoring, because you think, oh, wow, tons of people saying things, and then you realize like sometimes even 10 to 20% of that can be completely unnecessary, like, I don't know, SEO articles that came out of nowhere and it just kind of like keyword stuffing into blog articles. And you're just asking yourself, like, how in the world did this happen? And is this the brand's fault? Is the brand hiring an agency to do this because they wanted to rank their SEO up? That these are the questions that I'm asking, because we see this for certain brands that we've worked with and monitor their competitors as well. And we see that, they've got high reach or mentions, but they come from unnecessary sources and it doesn't make sense. Does that happen to you as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And certain software will let you suppress domains or handles or, wherever that's coming from. But it's a little bit like, I don't know if you guys in Malaysia have the game Whack-A-Mole. It's that carnival game where the mole comes up and you have to hit it with a hammer, and then another mole comes up
that game.
And you hit it with a hammer. Yeah, so we say that that's like whack-a-mole. You remove these domains or these users from your listening, and then 10 more appear, and so it's just a never-ending struggle. I don't know of a company that's done that exceptionally well. The more sophisticated software companies do understand more of that nuance. And so essentially, the more you're paying for social listening software, the less likely it is you're going to see bots, in your results. But otherwise it is a big problem. And honestly, that's why we use humans, is because, if we can see that 20% of their comments are coming from, or their mentions are coming from bots, we're just going to strip that before we even present the report. Like, why send that to the client, So, and then you have to be consistent from month to month or reporting period to reporting period to make sure that you're doing the same thing every time.
Well, that being said, we're going to wrap up with a final question. Could you maybe share like a favorite brand, a project that you worked on where you used social listening as a tool really well? And what was like the key takeaway from it?
There's so many. I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. 20 years.
Yeah. But I would say we work with a client now for whom we do social listening. We've been working with them for almost 10 years. They're a B2B software company. And we do daily monitoring and measurement and reporting for them. And we find it really, really helpful to prove ROI to their upper management of whether or not our content marketing efforts are working. And so they have a blog, they have Twitter, they have LinkedIn, they're B2B, so we do use Facebook and Instagram, but it's minor for them. And then we work with influencers on their behalf as well. So we use social listening to show proof of that success. And so we're always looking for our share of voice compared to our competitors, that our share of voice is strong. It might not be top, but it's going to be strong. They're a scrappy company that competes with a lot of big publicly held companies. So, in any given month, another company might have more volume of conversation, but the quality of the conversation is usually better for our client or more directly specific to their product versus like some, big company that has 7 other products.
So you help shape the voice and tone based on like your daily monitoring and sort of like make sure that they're, enhancing their key messages and sort of delivering the right things to their target audience.
Right. So we want to know what the universe is talking about related to them, but then we also use it to show that, yes, our efforts are having an impact. And that measurement is really important because it's hard to show ROI from some of the content that we create.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say next, it's like, I'm really impressed that you actually have shown ROI through social listening, because I don't think a lot of brands, say in Southeast Asia, have grasped that concept. When we offer it as a service, sometimes they're kind of shying away from it because they think, oh, isn't that easy? Didn't you just monitor it through hashtags and things like that? But they don't realize that there's a lot of sophistication there to it. There's a lot of processes and vetting in order for it to be well presented and used as data to strategize for the next marketing strategy for their target audience, So we still see that I think a lot of brands just see social as, let's make it look pretty and, give interesting content, but they don't realize that interesting content should be listen through people of what they think is interesting content. And, so it starts with listening, honestly. I mean, and some of them are not thinking of that. Some of them are just going like, let's just talk about ourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, we start pretty much every client project with a strategic analysis that includes a pretty heavy dose of listening. And we'll listen not only to what's going on with the company, but we'll look at 4 to 5 competitors and then 4 to 5 aspirational brands. And we'll pull all that data down and understand, first of all, how the brand stacks up against its competitors in terms of share of voice, in terms of platforms and channels and messages and themes and topics. But then we'll also look at aspirational brands, brands that they would like to be like, and look at
Set
their
a benchmark. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look at their content as well, so that we can, use that as our, ideal state for some brands, not all brands, but often we'll look at those aspirational brands. And that's fun to look at that listening data as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
So with that, Stephanie, I think we've come to the end of today's episode. And I believe that, we're all on the same boat in believing that social listening is highly essential in any brand's content strategy. And if the brand is not doing it right now, then
they're kind of missing out.
They're missing out on a point, right? They're missing out on a huge point. And so thank you for contributing to today's conversation.
You're so welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Well, Naz, that was an amazing conversation with Stephanie. What did you think? I know it's your favorite topic, social listening, and recently you got really, really invested in it. And so how do you feel about today's conversation?
It was really great. I was almost like, I felt like we were connected. Everything we were talking about, she was resonating, I was resonating, and it just made me realize how, as an agency, we are going through the same challenges.
Yeah.
I think one thing that she has definitely is the experience that we are still young as a company, and
Yes.
we're getting there. But it's really nice to know that we're sort of on the right track of what we believe is the right way to go. And social listening is an important aspect for any brand to take their content marketing strategy to the next level. And as she mentioned, ROI is actually, you can prove that through social listening. And so I think overall that conversation was a positive one.
It is a positive one because, it's interesting because she's from the US and we talk about this cultural difference between like being in the US and Malaysia. And, us as an agency, there is a lot of educating that's in need right now for the brands that we work with when it comes to social listening, like you say, because like you said, a lot of them don't understand what it is and they think it's easy and they can't seem to understand the value of it. And so how do you think we can sort of tackle the situation to let the brands know that this is important, that it's not just about like going through the hashtags or like scrolling through your phone to see what people are saying? There's like a deeper research that's in need, and maybe they need to invest more in tools and in us, maybe, or not.
The thing is, like, we always believe in either doing this in-house or hiring experts who actually know and care about these kind of services, or rather strategies, in order for them to strengthen their content marketing strategy. And for me, like, what needs to happen in, say, Asia is really about the whole marketers ourselves, like, people in our part of the world, to champion this importance to their clients. It's got to be almost like a movement to
Agreed.
believe, to basically educate clients to be like, hey, this is really important. There's, proof that there is ROI. There's proof that, it has brought success to brands. But, one of the challenges that you mentioned, we're in Asia, and this whole dual language thing, or like the fact that even machines, like all these AI intelligence, machine learning intelligence, a lot of them are still not picking up the multiple languages that exist on this region. And in order for you to almost set up a social listening service for a client, your team has to be equipped with understanding the culture of that nation and be able to curate and understand how they said it, or, what are they trying to say and things like that. So as I mentioned, like when we do it for ourselves, for one of our clients, I have to vet through and make sure that they're accurate or that they're unnecessary,
And good thing you can speak, a few languages. Otherwise, how would you even make sense of that?
Yeah. But the crazy thing is, like, say, for example, in Malaysia, people speak Mandarin, they speak, Tamil. And how do I monitor that? And I actually need to expand our team to be able to do that. But at the same time, the machine's not even capturing that at some times.
So it's almost like a next level sophistication of machine learning where this software can understand like Tamil, Cantonese, characters, English. Is there such a thing out there yet? Or
I think, as Stephanie mentioned in her last conversation, China, Korea are like really pushing forward towards these kinds of tech because they know that there is importance in social listening. So I wouldn't say all of Asia is not in line with the concept of why social listening is important. But I think, like, say in Southeast Asia, I mean, there are not many. I wouldn't say no. I'm not entirely sure if there are tools out there who are really, really understanding that some nations are speaking bilingually, or they're not necessarily using they speak slang,
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think the sooner brands realize that this art of localization is key in their product or service, then the sooner that, they can get this whole ROI thing, because a lot of times it's hard to justify to them because they don't see how it's going to profit them, okay, so I'm going to hear what my customers say, but then what else, And I think this education process is important because it also helps them innovate. Let's say, as a brand, if I have a product or service and I know what my customers are saying about it, then I can also sort of like innovate my product or my service and get better at what I do,
100%. And that's why I think social listening is super key in this region at this point, and that agencies and marketers of this region really need to continuously encourage their clients to utilize these tools.
Definitely. And that being said, we're at the end of this episode, Social Listening with Stephanie Schwab. It has been very exciting. My name is Rachel Lai.
And I am Nazira. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify and all kinds of other channels. And don't forget to leave us a comment or drop us an email if you feel like you wanted to ask questions about our topic for today. And
we're recording live from Bali on the Island of Gods from Genesis Creative Center.